Welcome to Sportsmenlike Conduct. With special guests, Tim Irwin and Brian Robison. And now here is your host, Brandon Coulter.
All right, welcome to Sportsmanlike Conduct. I'm your host, Brandon Coulter, and we have two guests today. And I got to tell you something. Before I introduce them, I mean, this is one I just want to sit back and listen to. I really, really want to hear these stories. I want to sit back and give the mic to these two guys, but it's a special day. We're in Knoxville, Tennessee. It happens to be the Bassmaster Classic week, so one of our guests is here for it, and the other lives here. But before I introduce them, these two gentlemen have, 25 years combined in the NFL, 24 of which they were with the same team. I'll give you a hint, there's a hat on the table. They have almost 300 starts between them for that team, for the Minnesota Vikings. It's absolutely unbelievable. They almost never missed a start. They were workhorses on their team. They the accolades are ridiculous. I mean, they're all SEC, all Big Ten, Hall of Honor at Texas, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And before I forget something, we have Tim Irwin and Brian Robison. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming. You know, the podcast, the whole concept of this podcast is basically sportsmanlike conduct. You know, we're all sportsmen. And being a sportsman brings people together like nothing else. My wife, she hates it. You know, I end up going to a party somewhere and there'll be a bunch of her work people. And as soon as someone says, man, I got to get up early and go turkey hunting, it's over, because that's my new best friend. You know, and I don't think people realize how much being a sportsman, brings people together. I mean, Tim, you and I got to be friends for one reason.
That's right. Fishing.
You know, Tim, for those of you who don't know, Tim started the Tim Irwin Food City fishing tournament. It benefits the Boys and Girls Club of East Tennessee. We're going to get him to talk about it here in a little bit. But one of the first, I fished it with, do you remember who?
Well, you fished
Mike?
with your dad a lot.
Yeah,
and
that
before
was
that, you
afterwards.
fished with
Mike Sexton.
Yes, Mike Sexton from Food City,
You
right?
put me in, I was doing well back in the day, and you
Right.
called me and said, I'm going to put you with one of my guys, and you
Yeah.
put me with Mike Sexton, and we became lifelong friends through fishing your tournament.
Well, good.
And Brian, we met at the Bassmaster Classic years ago, and you called me the next year and asked me to do what?
I asked you to fish my Real Men Foundation.
I mean, and that's what this podcast is about. It's amazing how the connections you make through the outdoors, and these two guys they exemplify it. So, but I can't have you two on the show without talking football. I mean, come on, right? I mean, two of the greatest Vikings of all time. I mean, no one will argue that point. Tim, you were honored at the top 50 Vikings, I think, in the 50th anniversary, correct?
Yes.
And Brian, it just goes without saying, there's more coming your way. You're in the Texas, Hall of Honor. I mean, your Minnesota accolades will come, right? I understand you two never met each other.
Never met, not till today.
Probably met my daughter. She was an intern doctor at training camp one year when you played. So
Okay.
she worked with Sheldon Burns. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to hear some football stories, because here's what's interesting to me. Tim, right tackle,
Yep.
left end.
Yeah.
Who wins?
Well,
I mean, right? I mean, these two giant human beings. I want to know who.
I'd love to sit here and tell you that I could block Brian Robinson smoking a cigarette, but I have no idea. It looked pretty good to me when I watched him play. So, yeah.
It's one of those deals that as a competitor, if you sit here and you say you're not the guy that wins, you're not much of a competitor. So, at the end of the day, we played in two different eras. And I'm sure if we went against each other in our primes, it'd probably be a battle every day in practice.
My advice to him would be, don't let me touch you. If I touch you, I could probably block you. touching you that might be kind of hard.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, I thought that was pretty cool. Y'all would have lined up every day in practice.
Yeah,
Every
we
day.
did. Yeah.
That
We only had 3 tackles. We carried 3 tackles on the whole team, and 2 of us, our starting 2 tackles and our starting centers, were the starters on the wedge. And it's different nowadays. They don't do that anymore. But we had Gary Zimmerman, Hall of Famer, Kirk Loudermilk, and myself were the wedge. And I mean, you turned around, boom, there was something right in front of you. So they do things a little different now. They made some good safety changes, but nobody would put their tackles on the wedge anymore. Those days are gone. But
Yeah, and I think for me, man, I've always respected the guys that came before me. And I think a lot of that comes from my father and the way he taught me growing up and stuff like that. But I've always respected the guys that came before us because they didn't play for a lot of money. And there was a lot less of them out there on the field, and there was a lot less rules as far as practice and things like that. To me, I mean, if I'm being honest, like, to me, that's when the real men played, right? That's when the real men played football, because if you were weak-minded at all and you couldn't cut it, you wasn't going to last very long.
You know, Tim, and you're one of the really, obviously I was doing some research on this, and the more research I did, I couldn't believe how similar the two of you are in so many ways, and we'll talk about some of that. But, in your day, a lot of people stayed with the same team. It wasn't that odd. In today's age, it doesn't happen, right? I mean,
I had the same roommate for 11 years. That's unheard of today.
Wow.
And I mean,
what's
nowadays
in the
guys move around a lot more. Free agency came along at the end of my career, and you had options that you didn't have back when I played. But I wouldn't have gone anywhere. I would have loved to have been able to retire a Viking. I hated to leave that last year. Denny Green said it was time, and I went and played for somebody else for a year. That's okay. No hard feelings, but I would have rather stayed a Viking.
And Brian, you never left. You retired a Viking.
I never left. I mean, my last year I got released, and I was in a situation where I had played long enough. I had made a good amount of money that I wasn't just going to go anywhere. I had literally had a list of about 5 teams that I would go to, and if they didn't call, like, I was okay. I was content. I wanted to play that last year in Minnesota and be done with it. It didn't happen for me. It doesn't happen for a lot of guys, but I'm a lot like Tim. I played with a guy named Chad Greenway for 10 years, and for us to be able to do that together, I mean, it just doesn't happen very often. And now in today's game.
South Dakota, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And there's another young man that's still playing that lives here in Knoxville, and the name of the podcast is Sportsmenlike Conduct, so we didn't have Harrison out here. Like I said earlier, he might have held a spinning rod upside down and embarrassed us. But Harrison's been with the Vikings his whole career. So, is there something in the water? Is there ownership? That's unheard of in professional sports, let alone in football. And, what is it about Minnesota that, is it just luck that, these 3 guys are here, or is there something up there that's special?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think it is special up there. I think it is a little bit of luck, but I think it really comes down to organizations understand when they have a leader in the locker room that can stick around and keep a group cohesive and keep a group together. And I think that's what you're seeing with Harrison Smith is you've seen them release a few defensive players already this year because they're preparing for other things. But at the same time, they understand that Harrison is probably the guy that can hold that defensive backfield group together. And so they need to keep him around. They need to have a veteran presence in the locker room because the league is just getting younger and younger as the years go by. And so for them to have that guy that can bring that veteran presence that's been around, can coach those guys up and be kind of a coach that's on the field with them, it means a lot to an organization.
Now, Tim, what kept you up there? Was it the pheasant hunting or the ice fishing?
Well, you couldn't move. Most of my career, you couldn't move. You either played there or you went home.
Okay.
But it was fine with me to stay there. I loved the outdoors in Minnesota. That license plate says land of 10,000 lakes. Every one of those lakes are there, and I tried to hit them all. Tuesday was our day off traditionally, and I would head out on a Tuesday. I would have fishing rods. I would have a gun. I'd have my dog. I had boats stashed all over the county that I could run to and fish for a while here, and I could duck hunt in the morning and maybe kill a couple pheasants and even take my bow and maybe shoot a deer on the way back in right before dark. And Bud did the same thing. we had practice one day, and Bud left a buck hanging in the woods down by Chanhassen and went back and got it after practice on Saturday. Yeah, we sure did. It suited me, and the people up there were great too. They're very stoic Norwegian people. You know, they don't get real high, they don't get real low, but they love their football. They love their Vikings, and you could do no wrong up there. It was a great place to play.
Did you partake in all the lakes, Brian? I mean, did you fish up there? You know, we had some major league fishing events up there last year. You know, Mille Lacs is obviously the you know, they're kind of
big smallmouth.
They're diamond but all the lakes up there, we actually did some Cup Series up there, and we fished a bunch of those little lakes, and they are full of fish.
They are.
Yeah, those little lakes up there. I mean, dude, I say it all the time. Like, Mille Lacs is a special place, but there's probably another 4 or 5 lakes in the state of Texas that have that class of fish in them, or in Minnesota, sorry, that have that class of fish in it. It like Tim said, it's a special place. I was the same way he was, man. We would do OTAs and spring practices, and I'd pull my boat and truck in and right along the practice field, and everybody's like, who's the boat and truck today? Oh, that's B-Rob. So I'd jump in the truck as soon as we're done with practice, and I'd head out for the weekend. And man, it's a very outdoor state. It's if you're an outdoorsman, it's a very special place.
I had some of my buddies that old teammates I saw at Bud Grant's funeral this weekend, and the first thing they asked me was, if I come to Tennessee, will you take me fishing? So
no kidding.
I took everybody. Doug Martin and I specifically got in a fight in practice, and as soon as the whistle was blown, we jumped in our clothes and we were fishing that afternoon. So, I mean, that's how it was. That just was.
Unbelievable. And, you know, while we're on the subject of fishing, you know, both of you guys kind of went a little tournament route, you know, after you got done, you know, football and all that stuff. Brian, you came out hot, you know, you right after you played. Tim, it might have been a few years. You were probably busy getting through law, doing your law stuff.
No, I came out. I was done with law school by the time I quit. I played till 94, and I was a lawyer in 90, so I had it figured out. I was ready to do some fishing.
There you go. Now, y'all fished. I mean, Tim, I think you did some Red Man stuff.
I did the FLW tour. We did 7 years of it.
Wow.
Yeah. I fished with some good fishermen, learned a lot. Did pretty well. Always made that championship on the non-boater side. I never fished at boater. I think the last tournament I fished was the BASS Southern up on Douglas, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The last one I fished, and did okay in that. It's fun. I like it. I like the fact that we do such a good job taking care of our resources and put them back in there too.
Yeah.
Now, I like to eat fish. I mean, I crappie fish a lot, and I eat them, and I eat walleye, but I like to see those bass swimming off so somebody else can catch them. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And Brian, you did the Opens for a year, and you're doing the Toyota Series, you know, the FLW stuff. Well, I'm sorry, now it's Major League Fishing, right? I mean, everything's kind of changed.
Yeah, so I was doing the Costa Series and stuff like that. Even towards the end of my career, when I was playing, I would do the early tournaments in the early spring and winter. And then when I retired and was done playing football, I jumped right into it. Did the Opens for a year, and then actually started doing the MLF Toyota Series, of course. But I mean, dude, I'm invested in this thing. You know, I've had such a passion for it for such a long time that I've literally monetarily wise and just mentally wise have invested myself in fishing.
That's unbelievable. We'll talk about that. I know how you're invested now.
Yeah.
It's you know, I wish you well. We'll talk about that endeavor after the break. But no, Tim, crappie fishing, because that's, I mean, every time I talk to you, it seems like these days you're pulling boards or out and about. I mean, is that what your passion is now?
That's what old men do. I fish Tuesday nights. I fish with my brother, and we fish a small local trail. And I'll jump in a big tournament once in a while. But I want to do whatever is fun and whatever I can do to get fit. I just booked a trip today to go to Alaska in September. I've got one more billfish left to catch, a black marlin.
Okay.
I'm going to go to Panama and get that done while I'm still able. And I don't know, I like to do a lot of kinds of fishing, but bass tournament fishing's always been my love. One year, fishing with a great local angler, great national angler named Jack Wade. Yeah. We were teamed up, and we traveled together, and we fished a lot of tournaments together. And that year, I made more money fishing tournaments than I made my first year playing football in the NFL.
Wow.
We were hot that year, and I had to declare it on my income tax. It's kind of a killer, actually, but we were hot.
Yeah, I talked to Jack not long ago. Have you talked to Jack lately?
I talk to him every couple of weeks or so. I keep in touch with him. He's doing well. But I love it, and I like my day job too. I like being a judge and helping kids and doing what I do. But I would go fishing at least every pretty day. There's some days that we fished on. In the old days, I'm thinking, why did I do that? Why did I even leave the house that day? The wind and the cold. But I think these guys are going to be okay this weekend the way it's shaping up.
Yeah,
should be pretty good.
I think they're going to catch them pretty good.
Yeah.
And, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, I want to know more about what you're doing now, Brian, because like you said, you're monetarily invested in this and you're here for the Classic, not just because you love the sport, because you have some anglers in it. And Tim, we want to talk about your tournament because it's coming up here in about a month. And it's a special tournament. I know for you, it's a special tournament for this town, and it's a really special tournament for me, and we'll go into that for a lot of reasons, and we'll do that after the break.
Sportsmanlike Conduct is sponsored by Crockett Creek Beef Jerky. Use promo code #SportsmanlikeConduct for 20% off your order of Crockett Creek Beef Jerky.
All right, we're back. Took a little break there. It's always good to quench your thirst a little bit and take a break. But, one of the things we were talking about on the break is youth. Tim, there is no one in Knoxville, and I would, truly argue this point with anybody that's done as much for youth, whether it's disadvantaged youth, whether it's youth that are in trouble, or my son, which he very well could have been in trouble.
He was borderline.
He was borderline for sure. Done more for youth in this state, especially this Knoxville area than you have. But talk about. I want to know what it was like to start a youth league, and Brian, I want you to kind of chip in. Your kids are now into that section of their life.
Yep.
You're now. It's been a long time since you've been involved in youth sports, since you were a youth, right? And so now you're in it from a different standpoint, right? You're a father. So Tim, what we'll get into your tournament in a minute, but specifically sports, what led you to start the youth league here for Knoxville Catholic?
Very selfish reasons. My sons,
Okay.
because they were playing, and I didn't want to trust them to be coached by anybody else. I wanted to do it myself and do it right. I had some vision. And I went to a place that had never had strong football, kids or high school or otherwise. And the dads, I said, we can't play in this. The equipment was from the 1960s. Helmets were cracked. It was pitiful. So I just went down and bought the stuff and told the guy at the athletic house, I'll be good. I'll make good on it. And the dad said, where'd you get all this stuff? I said, I went to the athletic house and charged it. They took up a collection. We had enough money to buy all that stuff, about 20 grand, and enough to build a field house to put it in, a little field house to store it in. In the first game we coached, we didn't win a game all season. We weren't very good. We scored one touchdown, and one of our players got called for clipping 20 yards behind the play. The next year we won 3. The next year we won 4 or 5. The next year we went in the playoffs. The next year we were second place. By the time they were 8th graders, they were undefeated and champions and ready to go to high school and be men. And it was a lot of fun for me. I think it was fun for the kids. We did it right after school, and I made sure everybody got home and ate dinner with their families. One thing about youth football that always kind of bothered me was taking kids away from the dinner table. I had moms come in and do the studies after school for 45 minutes before I got there from work, and then we practiced. So they had a study hall, then they practiced, and then they went home and ate dinner. Worked out real well, and that was always important to me to get them back around that table. And I always encouraged my kids to play other sports. I did not want to have a bunch of zombies into the weight training when they're 10 and 11 years old and totally focused on football and nothing. I wanted to play everything and find out what they're good at, and then maybe concentrate on it when they get late in high school. So that was my model. and it worked good. We always checked report cards, made sure everybody was going to school, made sure everybody's passing their classes. Is what we kind of the model that we had, and those young men I've kind of followed them have been pretty successful in life so far.
They have, and I can. One of my favorite stories that I still tell to this day, Tim. I think you'll remember this. Nolan was playing for a rival school and played against one of your middle school teams and had a pretty big day. And you had asked the opposing coach or one of the parents who that was, and they said Nolan Coulter. And you said, "Well, I know Brandon. He'll play for me next year." I don't know if you remember that or not. But sure enough, I got a call.
Yeah.
And Nolan played for Knoxville Youth or Catholic Youth the next year. And so
I used to go to the baseball games, do my scouting for football season, and check that big first baseman that can move a little bit. Think there's a tackle right there. Watch him move around. That was fun. I enjoyed it. I might come back and coach I got grandkids coming on now, so I got 4 grandkids, and that's probably not the end of the line, but I got 2 boys, 4 and 3, so it won't be long till they'll be thinking about flag football or something. So
have you had the grandkids fishing yet?
I have. Yeah, we've done a little bit of damage on the Lake Loudon there, so we've caught a lot of fish in the cove where Duncan Boat Dock is.
There you go.
I wouldn't be surprised. The way the lake looks right now, and just knowing that part of the lake, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody didn't hit that first thing and catch a 4 or 5 pounder in there at Duncan Boat Dock. So.
Tim, the last time they were here for the Classic, and we won't get too much into it, but the upper end of the lake you couldn't fish. It had been we'd had so much rain, there was so much current, and it was flooded and it was blown out.
It'll be different.
And there was a few that were caught, when the Classic was here, up in some sloughs. But the main river, the Pellissippi Flat, I've caught a bass or 2 on it.
Yeah.
All of that was you couldn't fish it. It was just rolling mud. And so this year at the Classic, they're going to have that whole river is going to be opened up, and I think
I think it's done. Major rain. I think it's done, and I think it'll have 2 days to clear up. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody turned left and went up the Holston or French Broad and caught some fish too.
Well, there's a boy named Keith Boucher that's winning the Major League Fishing tournament on Douglas and Cherokee right now at the dam all the way up at the top of Cherokee. And it looks like he's going to win today. And he's fishing the Bassmaster Classic because he qualified for it. So he's fishing both doors. And he's in a little tiny aluminum that he can run about 6 inches of water. So I can promise you he'll be up there.
Well, you got it all to yourself when you do that. And then when Ott was here, he went 35 miles the other way.
Yeah.
And everybody in the world knows where he caught those fish because you can see it. So it's going to be an interesting showdown. But I think they're timing it out just right. I mean, the guys that like to throw jerk baits are still going to be able to catch a few. It's 47 degrees yesterday, so in the water temp was. They'll still be able to catch a few. The guys that want to throw something with a blade on it can find that dirty water and do that, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I think there'll even be clear water for the swim baiters too.
I think they're going to catch them every way they want. One of the things I get to do is the city of Knoxville sponsors me, and so I work a lot with Visit Knoxville. And I remember the phone call. I mean, Chad Culver called me and said, "Hey, we want to move this 2 weeks later. Instead of the year we had it before. Is that going to be good?" And I lit up. I said, "Absolutely, they're going to smash them."
Yeah.
And so it couldn't be a better week. And so, Brian, let's talk about. You mentioned earlier you're monetarily invested in fishing now. So tell us what that means.
Yeah, I want to hear about this and see if I can get any discounts.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I actually got approached by a tackle retailer down in Texas called Tackle Addict. It's a very well-known tackle retailer in the state of Texas. Actually, where it kind of got its name was when Jordan Lee won the Classic wearing a Tackle Addict hat, and he was part of the business. And so the business partner that I had was Shane Campbell. I was a part of it for a few years, which going on 3 years now. And recently Shane got out of it, sold his half to Brandon Belt. And so we have been basically doing total store remodel. We've got a new website that's just waiting to be launched. We've already designed it. We've already got everything rolling. We're going through inventory counts, all that stuff right now. But yeah, I am monetarily invested in the sport of fishing, no doubt about it.
I mean, amazing. You know, that's what you get out of football and you get into fishing. I'm not sure that's a good investment. I'll just be honest with you.
Well, you know how they say become a millionaire in fishing, right?
Yeah.
You start out a billionaire.
There you go.
So
exactly.
I figure I'm just going to go from being a millionaire to a thousandaire.
There you go.
I know what BOAT stands for. Break out another 1,000. I got that message.
That's right.
They don't even want to count the tackle and the rods and the reels that are in it, but I mean, you got to spend your money on something. It's only money.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's all a good investment.
Yeah, Brian, you've got 2 guys fishing the Classic this week. Now, this will air after the Classic. So, it's funny. We get to see how your predictions come true right by the time it's there. So be careful.
Yeah,
you got 2 guys fishing the Classic this week that are tackle addict anglers.
I do. We've got Keith Combs, who has been a part of Tackle Addict since the very beginning, and then recently signed Lee Livesey. We signed him this year, and so we've got both of them fishing the Bassmaster Classic this week.
And Lee's one of the hottest guys on the Bass Tour right now. He's been killing it the last couple of years, and I wish them both well. It'd be nice to have a little tackle addict on the stage, wouldn't it?
For sure, it definitely would be.
If they do win in Knoxville, does that mean you're going to change shade of orange? Maybe. Can we get some of that burnt orange turned to no?
No, we're gonna keep that burnt orange.
Really?
Yeah, we got
to win in Knoxville. I mean, that's a big win.
I can't do it.
That's okay. I mean, we love Texas. That's why we went over and saved them from the Mexican government. That's why we did that.
That's right.
Volunteers,
baby. We're happy to
save
help
them
out
so they
anytime
can have a
we
University of Texas.
That's right.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we appreciate your coach. He's got us in the Sweet 16 this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, luckily we're there too. But yeah, when I was there, Rick Barnes was there and did a heck of a job did a heck of a job with our basketball team there at the University of Texas, and came over here, and he's been successful over here since he left. So,
man, that's awesome. So Tim, let's talk about your Food City tournament. So, for those of you who don't know, Tim's had a Food City Tim Irwin tournament here. He's raised, it's over $1 million now, right? $2 million. God almighty, he held up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was really proud. I got to be part of a group that went down to the bank, and we paid off the last note of debt that the Boys and Girls Club of the Greater Tennessee Valley had. It was 800-something thousand. We wrote them a check.
Wow,
and that was
awesome.
That $2 million we raised over the years was a big part of that. So every bit of money that we earn now goes right to hiring more staff so we can serve more kids, because we got waiting lists at all 18 clubs. So,
and you were a part of it. You're giving back to an organization that you were a part of as a youth, right? I mean, this is something you did, right?
There were some years when we had that thing, we didn't think we were going to break even early.
Yeah.
I grew up there. That's a labor of love for me. I mean, I was a kid there. I never wanted to go home at night when my parents came to pick me up. I didn't want to leave. I loved it. And it's a great thing to give back to. My family's bought into it. My kids help me. My son gets up and announces now with me and I know you used to fish with your dad some at it. It's become a father-son type thing. It's a good pot. It's $10,000, which is a lot for a local angler to win. And it goes like 10, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 8, 7. I don't know. It's a pretty good payday for a boat tournament, and guys have fun, and we try to keep it professional and combine 2 loves: love of fishing and love of kids. So,
well, I remember one of my first years, you used to have it at your house on Douglas Lake.
I did.
Tim had a big yard out there on Douglas. All them boats would pull up. That was when I was fishing with Mike Sexton.
Yeah.
We were about late for weigh-in, and we were running down the lake. And I caught a bunch of them there at Cowboys, and we had a chance to win. And so he's like, can we make it? We were in a little 17-foot Norris craft with, oh, by the way, Brian, since you're a purple and yellow guy, Norris craft would suit you really, really well.
I like it.
There were a lot of purple and yellow Norris crafts back in the day.
I had one. Yeah.
But we were running in, and I'll never forget, we hit a big wake, and it knocked both the cowlings off of his motor. The motor changed sound, and I turned around and it didn't have any cowlings on it. And he just looked at me and said, keep going, we'll go back and get them. He said, we got to make weigh in. And I think we finished 3rd or 4th. We didn't win. but they were fun tournaments. And, if you live in this area and you grow up in this area, obviously you know about the Tim Irwin tournament. And it's a rite of passage. I mean, you want your name on that trophy. And, Tim, I believe your name's on that trophy.
I won it one year. I gave my part of the money back, though. I didn't keep my share. But
and I was very, very fortunate. And I believe this still holds. I think my father and I are the only father-son team with a name on that trophy.
I think you probably are. I think there's been some brothers maybe.
And
I think that's it.
I think we're the only father-son. And my goal, truly, when I retire is my son Nolan, who you coached. I have one goal in the state of Tennessee fishing, and that is to win the Tim Irwin with my son and be father-son.
Nolan got good hand-eye. He'd probably be pretty good at setting that hook. You can hear it set, I'm sure. He's a good, fast twitch guy.
So
he was a good running back.
It's a special tournament in this area, and I want to win it with Nolan. And I want to be father-son on that trophy. And that's a huge deal for this town.
Well, we'll keep having it as long as they ask us to, as long as the folks at Food City are there. And I was very fortunate when I put a Food City executive with a young man named Corey Owenby, who's a great electronics fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
And they had such a good time that he really got enthused about fishing and got enthused about kids. And he shows up at the club all the time and cooks special meals for them. And he's really been a godsend, Ross Purdy. And he gets all the sponsors in line. If you'll notice, our tournament's sponsored by Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah.
It's sponsored by Miller and Budweiser. It's sponsored, it doesn't matter. They give up the competition to come be part of it. So that's kind of cool.
Hey, a lot of anglers could get that, right? MLF versus bass, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of us anglers could learn from that and put a lot of stuff aside for the betterment of the sport.
Yeah, it's like those golfers running off to play.
Yeah.
It's all about money. He was the beneficiary of the USFL. If it hadn't been for the USFL coming along and create some competition, the salaries would have stayed just as low as they could keep them.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so and then free agency came along when we went on strike there, and the rest is history. Now people are making a lot of money, and it's a dangerous game, and they deserve to. But I bet you Brian would say the same thing.
Yeah.
I never played it down for the money. I never played it down for the money. I played to win. I played with my teammates, and I don't miss the work. I don't miss the boredom of practice sometimes. I tell you what I miss, though. I miss playing cribbage in the locker room after practice. I miss the jokes. I miss the laughing.
The guys.
I miss weightlifting with the guys. I miss the trainers in the training room. I don't miss the smell, but I miss everything. I miss it. And fishing was a way for me to transfer out of that life and still compete a little bit. Now, I'm not as into competition as much as I once was, but like I said, I just booked a trip to Alaska. All I think about is where I'm going to catch my next fish. It isn't always a bass, but a lot of times it is.
That's awesome. Well, I want y'all to do one thing for me. The name of this podcast is Sportsmanlike Conduct, but we do some episodes every once in a while that are unsportsmanlike. And we had James Watson on here not long ago, and it was very unsportsmanlike. But I want y'all to think back to your career, and I'm going to turn the on sportsmanlike and give me one play, one moment that was just, down and dirty, just football. I know y'all got something to give the audience. Just
I
one
definitely
thing.
got something.
All right, what do you got?
So we were playing the Green Bay Packers, and we were actually lined up for a field goal, and I actually tried to jump and block the field goal. When I jumped, two of their offensive linemen grabbed the back of my legs, and they literally slammed me on the back of my head. Well, as I was down on the ground, one of their players kind of was over the top of me, taunting me and talking to me and everything. Well, I actually tried to kick him. Well, when I kicked him, I missed, and I pulled my foot back. And when I pulled my foot back, he actually kept walking up on me. Well, he happened to walk right up where his junk was right in front of my foot.
Yeah.
And I just kicked. And Yeah, there's a video of it. I kicked him in the nuts. I mean, lack of a better way to put it.
I actually think I remember watching that.
Yeah, it was exciting times.
Yeah, and they show it over and over and over.
And the thing was, is like for me, it wasn't malicious. And I actually talked to him about it. We actually became pretty good friends after that. But I wasn't trying to kick him in the nuts. But if I'd have known I was going to get fined $20,000 for that, I would have gave him everything I had.
That's right.
My record fine was only $600, but it still hurt.
Well,
I bet it did.
so tell me about the $600 fine.
Well, we had this quarterback named Tommy Kramer, and I cut the defensive end, and he was a big guy from Detroit, sculpted. I mean, just big, ripped up. Had a big horseshoe tattoo on his arm. Keith Ferguson, he was a giant. And I chopped him down, and Kramer got stuck with the ball. Somebody covered the back, and he had time to get up and hit him. And as Kramer was laying under him, he spit on him. And all I do is turn around and look and see this big guy just wailing on our quarterback. So I hit him on the dead run, you know. I got fined $600 for that. But the worst thing I ever did was when I spit on Lyle Alzado.
How'd that go?
He deserved it. We set him over on the sidelines. The guard and I turned out. The linebacker didn't come. I was left tackle that day. And we lifted him up and set him on the sidelines over there. And he got pissed off about it. He actually got my helmet off at one point, had it in his hand. But he was so out of control in such a rage. I'm not sure if he had some help with that rage or not. But they were afraid to let him back in the game, so I didn't see him the rest of the game, so it was fine. Yeah, I provoked that. That's probably the dirtiest. Oh, I know the dirtiest thing I ever did. Young defensive end named Trace Armstrong from the Bears. Mm-hmm. And the Bears were winning the game. They had a great team, and we did not. And Trace was just snorting and huffing and, trying to get to the passer like a wild man and just trying so hard to get a sack. And he wasn't getting anywhere. And I finally told him, I said, "What are you trying so hard for, rookie? You suck anyway." And that haunted him. He made a statement in the paper. If I saw Tim Irwin walking down the street, I'd run over him and back up to make sure I got him good. It haunted him his whole career. So, but now, funny. At that point in his career, you could have blocked him smoking a cigarette. He wasn't very good when he first got there. And I was like an 11-year vet, So.
And he ended up pretty good.
Yeah, he was a pretty good player.
Yep.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate y'all coming out. And, hey, listen, in honor of these two guys, I got us a Vikings hat. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have these guys sign it. And what we're going to do is the next 100 subscribers, we're going to put your name in a hat, and you're going to get a signed hat from – if they will. You guys good with it?
Oh, yeah.
I got to make sure. But they're going to sign this hat. We're going to send it to you. I'm not going to send it to you. The folks at Marketing are going to send it to you because they've been awesome. They set all this stuff up, them in Crockett Creek. So we appreciate them, doing this podcast. And, we'll get somebody a signed hat from these two just absolutely incredible men. And y'all got anything else before we go?
I'm actually excited to try this Crockett Creek jersey.
There you go.
I haven't had it before, but I've heard good things about it. So
I want to say everybody that's visiting Knoxville for the Classic, welcome to my hometown. Hope you love it here. Hope you have a great experience. Enjoy some good food. Watch some great competition out on the water. Be there to cheer those guys on. Buy something at the convention center, and I guess that counts you too, Brian. Welcome to Knoxville.
Well, I can tell you, I've been here before. I've been here for the Classic a few years back, and I can tell you, like, Knoxville is grade A class. I mean, it was one of the best Classics that I've been to, and I'm looking forward to this week as well.
Well, thank you guys for being on Sportsmanlike Conduct. I sure do appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brandon.
A Marketing production.